And welcome to another edition of Anime Review, our weekly anime podcast. I'm Zachary, your host. Joining me, as always, Nusha,
Yo,
Indiana.
Hello.
Hello to you both. Yes, we're wrapping up the season of anime. A lot of shows are coming to a close, either this week or next week. But in that case, um, because there's still a lot of shows going on right now, we're actually not going to. We're going to hold off a little bit about what we want to see next season. I still don't know what much of the shows are going to be, but we're going to have our big conversation regarding that next week, I think, depending on how things go. So let's just go ahead and hop in. We're kind of on a little bit of a time crunch here, so that's why we're just going to hop right into recapping the week. Now, someone pointed out about this last week that I had accidentally whenever we couldn't see a show, like it had not been subbed yet by a fan group or whoever, Crunchyroll didn't post the episode. I deleted the episode from our video, or I deleted the text from our video. I forgot to put it back in, so people were asking last week, like, "Where's High Score Girl?" We did talk about that last week. I just did not have it in the text, so it confused people. So I'm happy to say I made the correction. So we'll be fine this time.
how embarrassing for you.
I know. And no one else pointed it out, so I blame everybody else but me. And that's just how I roll with life. So, on that note, let's get talking about the shows that we've been watching. So, first up, let's talk about Angels of Death. Holy shit, this show sucks. Now,
Oh god, we're starting with this?
yeah, it's because we do alphabetical order, of course, so we're going to start with
Oh.
Angels of Death. So, leaving off on last episode, people who didn't remember to watch the post-credits scene that I pointed out before, Zach and Rachel show up on Rachel's floor. So the thing is that Rachel obviously is very nervous about having Zach on the floor because it's clearly her floor, and he's going to find out what happened here. We get some explanation about what's actually going on. Some a word that I'm kind of blanking on right now. Exposition. So Gray the priest lets us know that yes, he is God, and he hates people who use God with people they just disagree with, just like imposing their own religious beliefs on others, which is kind of exactly what he already did anyway. So it's kind of hypocritical. But anyway, he tells us that everyone in this entire building are test subjects for him, and he considers Zach pure and innocent because he doesn't know anything other than killing, which is not quite pure and innocent. And that's why Zach was branded an angel, because he's so pure. So, yeah. Basically, this episode, we already find out something we already knew, and that's Rachel killed her parents. Not totally clear about how it went down. So, we get some looks here, like Rachel's sitting inside of like some sort of a observation room with Danny looking at some TVs, and Zach is inside the room investigating, and then he watches this video that is like a news report about what happened that day with Rachel's parents and why she wound up here. So yeah. I can already pretty much tell, and you and I know, Nusha, we're the ones watching this show, of course, that we can kind of already tell what happened. I pointed this out too. It's that from the flashback a few episodes ago, when Rachel was messed with the paintings and there was that courtroom drama and stuff like that, it turns out that it seriously looked like that Rachel's dad killed her mom, because he's shown in like this flashback piercing her with a knife. I had two theories about what actually happened. One is that Rachel killed the dad. After the dad killed the mom, Rachel turned around, found a pistol, shot the dad, and killed him. And then, as you can see in this image we've got here, they talked in the news report about how that they found both parents stitched together with thread. And so I thought, hey, that Polly is her trying to cope with this, and so she herself, because she's got that thread and needle inside her bag, she must have stitched them together so that they'll always be together. Like they want that family bond to remain strong. So she's psychotic that way. So my other theory, though, is that Rachel is completely innocent, and someone else killed either the dad or both parents. because I did notice that Rachel's dad kind of looks like that person who set Zach on fire. That the last episode it kind of made light of, like we barely touched on it, but he kind of looked like Rachel's dad, just a little more grizzled, some whiskers there, and so yeah, I think that either way, it's it's still kind of weird to me that Rachel's so concerned about what Zach feels because if I'm not mistaken, Rachel killed Kathy in cold blood in front of Zach before, so it's not like, it's like she's clearly killed some people before. It shouldn't be such a deal. And then they had that whole scene where she was killing all those prisoners too. So it's kind of dulled on me. What'd you think about this episode, Nusha?
This show's just been like a slow burn since Kathy's floor. I feel
Oh, she was so
like
good, and
since she was easily a highlight, and since they got onto Gray's floor, and this became more about Rachel instead of just like her and Zach going through these crazy floors and dealing with these crazy villains, it's been super just stale to me. I don't know. Like this episode, we learned literally nothing aside from the fact that Rachel sewed her parents together. Like
that was the
the
big
entire
shock.
time, yeah, that was the big reveal. Is like, Zach, you're supposed to go out and learn about this girl you've been traveling with, and then he's going to do that, and then he gets held up by Gray, and the rest of the episode is him just talking to Gray, and when Gray is confronted, like, why did you do this? He's like, I'll tell you next time.
I will
And then,
say I kind of miss him saying Rachel Grun. Like
yeah,
his little
it's a good voice, but just
yeah.
like the character's just so boring. And then like even there, he's like, Zach, why did you suddenly change so much? You used to be like this cold-blooded killer, and now you care about this girl and you want to escape. And he's like having flashbacks, and he's about to come to like a revelation. Then he's like, I'll tell you later. And it's like, I don't know. It's just we keep getting like this carrot dangled in front of us, and
Uh,
we're just not getting answers. And that would be cool if like the characters were interesting, or if like the confrontations with the villains were interesting. But just these characters are just getting really boring and stale to me. The villains aren't really that interesting. Like Danny's suddenly back, and he's like the main villain now, but he's been kind of boring since he was introduced. And then yeah, like you said, like why would Zach care that Rachel killed her parents?
I know, and then Rachel's like, Zach, kill me. So I guess she can't face the shame of him knowing.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that Zach learned a long time ago that Rachel isn't all pure and innocent as she portrays herself to be. And considering all the stuff they've gone through so far, I don't think Zach could give a shit because
I don't think he would either.
no, he's like, yeah, that's cool. I killed too. We have something to bond with. That's about all I can really see happening.
They just get closer.
Yeah, we both hate our parents, so that's cool.
We both hate your dad.
Yeah, we both hate your
If your
dad.
theory is right.
Yeah, exactly. It's this show's become so highly predictable that I would not be shocked about either of those theories, and I'm leaning in towards the latter, that it's Zach who killed the dad. Because all they mention, if you go back and watch the episode, is just that um, when they end the flashback of Zach getting doused by with flames, they just say he took a bite out of him and he blacked out after that. So they don't actually say whatever happened to Zach's stepdad. So
Mm.
it's potentially that way, but we don't know how it's gonna go because apparently this is the last episode, the last regular episode that's gonna air on Crunchyroll, who is the one who, of course, licensed it in the West. The rest of the rest of the episodes, which there are four of them, because this is episode 12, this goes to episode 16. Those four episodes are gonna go as part of like a bundle deal with the video releases that start on October 5th. So clearly, we're not gonna talk about this next week. I kind of want to do my due diligence and stick with the show through the rest of it, and so I might keep on with it. I don't know if Nusha you're willing to, but I
It'll
think
be it'll be fun, I guess, to
fun.
continue trash talking it.
Of course. So that's Angels of Death. As far as the regular show is concerned, they left it on a cliffhanger there. Clearly, they want people to buy the video releases. So yeah, at this point, it's been one of the bigger disappointments of the season. So hopefully, as you said, it becomes worth it. If anything, for the entertainment factor of making fun of it. So we'll find out. So moving on, we'll bring Deanna back into the conversation here. We can talk about Attack on Titan. This hamburger face looking bastard. What is going? I can tell his face got sliced off, but Deanna, what's going on in this episode?
It's the Meat Man.
The meat man.
That's the canonical name for the
Oh
Titan now.
god, it's all shredded. Like you can tell the skin and everything going through his nostrils. Like he's got snot. It's kind of gross. Oh my god. We're looking at an image, by the way, on the stream. That's what. Anyway, Deanna.
Yeah. So, the massive titan that was making its way towards Orbit District, finally reached the wall, and, the Survey Corps and everyone else is trying to stop it from or stop Rod Rice from getting into the district, and, they blow off his face, and there's, like, these 3 kids who like witness this Titan, and I was like, damn, that must suck to witness this kind of Titan instead of the colossal Titan. Like, I'll
You
just
missed
be
out on all the cute Titans.
yeah.
Yeah,
You got the Michelin Meat Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Historia definitely shot up on my list of favorite characters. She's lost so much, but at the same time, she's gained like her own beliefs. Um, and so like she's the one who deals the killing blow with her dad like flying into the district, and then she lands somewhere, and then everyone's like, "Did you kill him?" Blah 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 stuff. And so I guess like people are starting to regard her in a very like positive light, and so making her the queen will be much easier that way. Um, and then there's there are a few scenes with Aaron that just made me laugh so hard. Like when he started punching himself because he noticed how everyone was kind of like growing and becoming like better, but he's just like still being this whiny kid. And so he's like punching himself. And I was like, damn, Aaron, you didn't have to go that hard on yourself. But yeah, at least like he has control over his Titan powers now and gets shit done. So that was a good turnout. And then we get Kenny. He makes it out alive, but he's definitely seen better days. And he like reveals, I guess, the serum. I don't know if it's the same serum as the memory altering one, but I guess in the next few episodes we're gonna get more on his and Levi's backstories because Levi is the one who finds him. And then in the preview, there's like this Armin lookalike with the same eyes as the Rice's family when they're injected with the serum. So that'll be interesting to learn more about.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's cool. I like the growth of Historia's character based on what you guys are talking about. Obviously, she was sort of shunned, but now she can be, as you said, an easy transition to become queen. I did actually not know that was part of her character that she is on the road to becoming queen, but that's pretty amazing. So I love that aspect of it. So move on to another show that both of you are watching. New show, of course, you also watched Attack on Titan, but that was kind of a good summary of there. So let's talk about Bananafish. Is it still heartwarming, or did they go back into the dark side? New show.
It's
It was like a
going
balance
back.
of both.
Yeah, that's kind of like the main thing going on now is like Ash has these two sides to him where it's like he's just a kid and then it's kind of heartwarming and
Just
then
a kid.
he is
Yeah.
a mob boss and he's like going out and killing people indiscriminately now because he has to protect his people from Arthur's people. And so it's kind of clear to see that one side of him is kind of winning this tug of war. Like he's got all these people that are from his mob life, and then realistically, the only one who keeps him tied to just being like a 14-year-old kid. Wait, not 14. What is he like? 16?
17?
17. Eiji's like the
From
only
14
tie
to
he has.
17.
Yeah. Jumped
No,
around
no,
it.
14 was the girl that he knew.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, going to like plot. Ash is going out and killing Arthur's men and we learn that Ash has kind of completely lost his ability to interact with normal people after being kind of inducted into this life as a mob boss. We even learned that like when he was a kid, he had this girl that he was interested in when he was 14, and then she ended up just being killed because I guess the darker connections he had thought they were like an item, so they went out and killed his girlfriend. And then we kind of see him lash out at Eiji because Eiji's kind of the only tie he has to being just like a normal kid. And so he kind of confronts him saying, this isn't the Ash that Shorter, Skip, or I know. And he kind of deep down knows that. And then he kind of starts going down this downward spiral. Um, and then I think at the end, we learn that Arthur, now that Golzine is out, uh, brokering like a deal with the U.S. government because we learned that they're using Bananafish to stage a coup in the Middle East so they can set it up as like a puppet state. And so while he's off doing that, Arthur's leading all of Golzine's men. And to kind of nip this problem with Ash in the bud, he challenges him to a duel, as gentlemen of the mob usually do. And so, yeah, they break out their duel discs and start
hold on,
throwing blue
I gotta
eyes.
get my cards.
So yeah, they set up this duel, and then it was kind of interesting to see them set this up because it's not just like this lawless environment anymore. There's kind of like an honor code to it. Like they go and they meet, or Ash goes and meets this guy Kane, who they want to have as like the mediator of this duel, like a neutral third party. And then he confronts him alone. And well, you think he's unarmed, but near the end he pulls a gun on Kane. And Kane basically listens to his request because he honors him by showing up alone. He knows that he could be killed at any moment, and he kind of respects the courage and the respect it took for Ash to go in there alone. So it was kind of interesting to see that dynamic of like honor and like your word behind all this like murdering and killing. And so the episode basically ends with Ash getting the call from Kane, and then the duel is about to go down, and then in the middle of the night he just kind of slips away, and next episode is probably going to be this one-on-one fight that I'm willing to bet Arthur's going to resort to some dirty means to win, because I don't really see his character being the honorable type.
No, not in,
I set my trap card.
Exactly.
You said we're only playing with monsters.
How dare you? That's awesome. Obviously they keep the tension really high in this show, and boy, does this mean this show is winding down then as part of the season, or is it going to go on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said it's like 20 something episodes, right?
Yeah, it's 24 episodes. We're already halfway through it, but there's not going to be a new episode next week, so they're taking a break.
Oh, okay. It's going to be a 12 episode fight between Arthur and
Dragon Ball Z style. They're going to be powering up.
they're both playing
Hold
stall
on.
decks.
They got to prepare the cards. Alright, so yeah, wow. It seems like there's gonna be a couple shows that we will be able to skip next week. Next show might be a little bit smaller one. Actually, that'll be a good time to talk about the next season then, I guess. All right, so moving on to the next show, we can talk about Cells at Work. I like the image I chose, by the way. So yeah, last week,
out of context.
it's her face. She's very bummed out. I'll mention why she's looking like this in a second. I'm showing an image of a red blood cell on stream, looking stone faced. But yeah, I made the comment last week that the only way they could really eclipse cancer cells is with hemorrhages, and turns out this is part 1 of the hemorrhage episode arc. So I kind of called it
hemorrhage arc.
I know, the hemorrhage arc, you know, the arc of hemorrhages. Which
the hemorrhage retrieval arc.
Oh boy. So yeah, that was this week apparently is when they were going to start covering that. So this whole episode setup is that Red Blood Cell is training a rookie who, you know, considering how Red Blood Cell's pretty much an airhead and is constantly lost all the time, constantly gets lost. It was pretty clear from the onset that, yeah, she's going to be kind of looked down upon a bit for the fact that she's not very good at her job as hard as she tries, which had its pretty charming moments, like when she finally figured things out. It's like, I kind of root for her at the same time, like, oh, you go, yeah, you go. But it kind of also showed that Red Blood Cell has a long way to go to become a reliable senpai. So, you know, just as a summary of this episode, you know, that yes, the person, you know, this, it kind of goes to show how going beyond cancer cells, how the show can go beyond it, because you know, on a daily basis, your body actually has cancer cells in it, and your body's constantly fighting them off. So it's not necessarily anything that tragic. Unless you want to look at this guy's body as like, all right, so I had cancer, I had a heat stroke, I had a terrible flu, food poisoning, and now I've got a giant life-threatening hemorrhage that's on a head injury that's under risk of antigen. So yeah, apparently that's, his body's gone through quite a lot. So if you take it to the extreme, this guy is messed up. So I do like how that, you know, anytime something happens, it could be considered serious, like when it's an event. Here with the hemorrhage, it's kind of like someone dropped a nuke, and how
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's everything's like a war zone, and then a lot of people have been wiped out, and white blood cell shows up in an area where it's supposed to be populated by red blood cell due to the rush, but there's nobody there, and so that is a great way to set this up. Like I think this episode brought everything back for me in terms of my enjoyment because it threw things through a loop. So I'm kind of happy about this. What'd you think about it, Deanna?
I agree. The show is definitely going back to how it was before, and that's a good thing because it's
Yes.
ending very soon.
Yeah, it's next episode, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is part one of part two about the hemorrhage. So makes a lot of sense. I could definitely foresee that the show continuing because they've still got a lot of stuff they could potentially cover. But yeah, someone in the chat mentioning Cells at Work Black. Yes, we did talk about this before about how it's inside of a very messed up body, like a smoker. I think among other problems, and all the characters obviously are pretty dark and grim. So yeah, read that manga if you really want to experience a way more serious series because boy, a serious series. So I will say though that Cells at Work, just the base show itself though, it's getting better. It's definitely getting better, which is a good way to end the show, I guess. So we'll find out. So moving on from that, let's move away from sort of the darker stuff because that's a lot of dark stuff. We'll get into Free, those lighthearted abs. What's going on with Free, Deanna?
This episode focused on Iwatobi High School students. So
Oh,
Rei and Nagisa are back in the fray. They swim in the nationals, but they don't make it to the finals. However, they're happy with their swimming because Rei beat his personal record, while Nagisa got inspiration from Rei to push himself even further. And then, yeah, the races and internal struggles, they were pretty quick. But overall, I'm just happy that they focused on the Iwatobi Swim Club because we didn't really see much of them throughout the season since everyone's focused on Rin or Haru.
yeah,
So,
the best swimmers basically. So that's
yes.
it's like we're still here. Still got plenty of eye candy that you can enjoy. So this show's way more than eye candy, by the way. I know that much. So I just think it's kind of funny. Uh, but that's good to hear.
hmm
So
So everything's ramping up for Haru's and Rin's races. So it'll end next week, and we'll see where the boys will go after that.
I mean, Haru is probably going to win, right? That's kind of what I would expect. So that's kind of how the show goes. But yeah, as we already talked about too, that this is also an example of a show that's been doing very well. So it's likely it'll continue in some form, with like either a movie or OVAs or ONAs. We'll find out. So I can actually talk about a show I've been watching again, after I just did, honestly. But let's talk about a show that only I've been seeing, and that's Giggy No Guitar. Boy, let's throw things back into the very dark territory. So, in this show, I thought this was a very cute image, by the way. So in the show, Mana, the young girl, is told about this curse app that allows you to curse whoever you desire. It's because Mana actually got this line message. They call it something else, like a rain message, but it's line, from a person named Karen, one of the other people in school, another student in school. And she personally attacked her, but then she quickly deleted the message. And so Mana, in some sort of retaliatory passion, she has Karen cursed. And so it turns out that Karen takes a fall, breaks her ankle, and that's the image I've got here. As she took an image on her Instagram and shared that, which was a pretty cute shot, even if she's really hurt. So, um, so the whole app, the way it's set up is that this is obviously another example of a yokai invading modern day Japan. So it turns out in order to have the curse app work, you have to know the person, and so uh, Karen, in and getting back at them because I guess she assumed that they were the ones that did it, which is kind of crazy. I think maybe it's just because they were being cold towards her, so she wanted to, take that back against them in sort of an ignorant way. So she curses both Mana and her friend. Her friend is the one that told Mana about the app, so she cursed them both. But even Mana's friend after having that happen to her, curses Mana in return. So what happens is that you get like this chain reaction. All of a sudden, here's a shot. Mana's got about 50 curses on her because she's a very popular person in school, and so because of that, a lot of people who have been cursed her back multiple times, and so Mana has only got 3 hours to decide a target, and if you don't decide a target, you are forced to hang yourself in response. So it's all really dark. It's kind of it's twisted with all these revenge plots going on. And so the setup is that this yokai Kubure Oni is a human that committed suicide and turned into a yokai. And so that's kind of he was the one that created this app, which I guess he's a coder or something like that. I guess he figured things out. Pretty impressive. So I will mention, just to wrap this up, is that like a few episodes I mentioned Nanashi, that nameless yokai that Kotaro had no idea what he was about, and then they kind of talked a little bit about him, but he felt like he was kind of like the main villain of this entire series. He's back. And he's going around taking control of people, including Karen. And so he mentions there he needs just 5 people to start something crazy. He doesn't really explain what, but he's like he's another curse, and he puts like this kanji on them. And so yeah, it looks like things are ramping up. But I think I'm only halfway through the season, so it's not like I'm expecting anything crazy. They might take a break, but I don't know for sure. But this show continues to be amazing. I'm having a great time watching this show, so highly recommended. On that note, let's talk about a show that's apparently, as you mentioned last week, Deanna, has been extended, or at least we didn't know that it was going to be extended, but it turns out it was because of the manga. Gintama. Looks like this was a serious episode. What happened there?
It was not a serious
I
episode.
take it back. Sorry, Gotama. I should know better.
If I know this character, it wasn't serious.
Oh, okay.
I was laughing throughout the entire episode because okay, so
misleading thumbnail. Jeez. Okay.
So Gintoki, he comes back and we get an introduction to a weak trait that he has, like so late into the show, which is the fact that he can't swim. And so and so it's funny because like there's this like fight going on, but it's on the river bank or something. And so this whole time he's like drowning, but like still trying to fight these guys that are after him. And then like they do a flashback of how like he got his fear of swimming, and it was basically he was blindfolded and holding his like katana, and then he was trying to cut a watermelon on the ground, which was like right on the edge of the cliff. And so he just keeps walking like blindfolded, and then he just like walks off of the cliff, and then they're like, wait, that doesn't even like have anything to do with fruit, like what? And it's just so random. But so yeah, Gintoki, he meets up with Takasugi, and then they're just like being stupid idiots. Like Gintoki, he like falls into the river, and then he gets on Takasugi's back like a horse, and then he like points, he points his sword out like he's saying charge, and it's just ridiculous. And then when we go back to Shinpachi and Kana, how like they're facing off with Sogo from the Shinsengumi, Shinpachi ends up being tossed back and forth between them like a toy or a ball, and then the scenes start changing to Kana and Sogo like playing soccer with Shinpachi as the ball, and then baseball like knocking Shinpachi out of the field. And it was just so ridiculous. And but yeah, like I feel like you guys really need to watch this show because you have to like witness it to really get the humor.
I've definitely seen a number of episodes of the show. I just have not like sat down and consistently gone through it. But I can definitely attest to the fact that this is one of the best comedy shows in anime. So yes.
Yeah, like you guys could probably just watch like clips on YouTube and like still find it funny without needing a lot of context. So
a lot of referential humor, which is great. I love it.
So eventually, Sogo pins down Kana and threatens to hurt Shinpachi, and then Kana, she turns into an older version of the lolly version that she's been adorning. Yeah. And it turns out she's actually the real Kagura. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So
yeah.
So yeah, they have a fight, and the fight was really good. And then we later find out that Kagura, she didn't really want to reveal herself because she couldn't handle the shame of bringing back news that she still couldn't find a way to bring back Sadaharu, which Sadaharu, he's still in like that mini ball, like sleeping. So yeah, and then as she was talking about it, like half of her face is like a grandma's face, and the other half is like a lolly version.
Oh, boy.
So it's just like, yeah, it's funny, but then it's still kind of like touching on those sentimental moments. So yeah.
Definitely a show for the fans. That's awesome. That's good to hear.
And it's going to be 14 episodes, not 12, so it's ending off on a odd number.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Number, but like, yeah.
An odd /
even number.
Yeah.
Yes. That's good. A lot more to see there. But yeah, as you mentioned before, it's likely going to extend beyond this, but they're clearly going to wait till they catch up to post more episodes. So that's amazing. Something to look forward to, considering all the other shows that are winding down or have already done so. Well, let's talk about another show that's been winding down, Hannie Bato, which good thumbnail, by the way. So yeah, something I've been talking about the past few episodes about the fact that Nagisa has been playing hurt with her bum knee, and so it didn't make any sense that she was not given any support. I mentioned coach's tape or a knee brace, and the day of the tournament that she goes against Ayano, she puts on the knee brace. I do appreciate they had some time with Rika to sort of train her knee, because you have to get used to that. I've worn a knee brace before when I was feeling kind of hurt in my knee when I was in cross country, and so like you kind of need some time to get used to it. But I do like at least that they spent at least a little bit of time there. You can kind of tell that maybe she just didn't want Ayano to read too much into it, and so maybe she was concerned about that aspect. I don't know why she waited so long to put it on, because you could still have lasting impacts. But let's bring things back a little bit about how this show episode started, I should say. So the mom is talking to Ayano, and she makes this crazy justification that since Ayano played badminton in order to be with her, now since she can play badminton without her, she came back. Absolutely makes no sense from a mom and daughter perspective. She clearly abandoned her to make her play better. And I also thought it was kind of interesting that the grandparents, they're the grandparents, right? That's
Yeah.
They're just as bad, because they're pretending like nothing happened. Like, okay, maybe they told Ayano's mom to go away, but now they're back. They're pretending like everything's all cool. And so I think they're just as culpable, just as bad towards Ayano, because once again, they're not acting like anything happened to her. So I thought that was awful. But on a good note, I will say Nagisa remains the best part of the show thus far. Ayano continues to show her demented side. I thought it was interesting how Elena even finally picked up on it. Although it was kind of funny when she's just Ayano just out there stretching, and then she does the crazy eyes, like, huh! Like they react to that. That's like they saw pupils like expand dramatically, like that's from that far away. It's like anime eyes. That's all you can really tell, because they're gigantic. So I thought that was a weird moment. I was like, okay, this is kind of comedic. But yeah, I'm glad that everything's been taken a little more seriously. Hannie Bato is getting really good despite the shitty family problems, and yeah, Elena apparently is now confronting Ayano's mom after all this time of sitting in the background. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go. What'd you guys think about this episode?
I really appreciated this episode of Picari Sweat the animation.
Have
you noticed, like, in every scene, someone's drinking Picari Sweat, whatever their drink is.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's okay.
Every episode, there's like 3 or 4 people.
Product placement.
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
much.
much.
Advertisement, yeah. Sure.
But yeah, like you said, Nagisa's definitely been like the standout character in this series, and like seeing her play finally against Ayano, and like I think it's a bigger deal than many people think that she's not using her smash at all. Like, yeah, there's a strategic purpose to it, but like in the beginning of the show, they set up that was something she relied on way too heavily, and it kind of came from this lack of confidence she had. She thought that was like her only weapon.
Just
and
power.
So seeing her play, yeah, and so like seeing her play against like her greatest rival, and she's like, I don't need this, was kind of really satisfying, especially because she's gotten like 3 points already. Um, but yeah, Ayano on the other hand is kind of, I don't know, she just remains like elusive to me. Like they're kind of playing her off as a little too villainous, I feel like. And I think
Rubbing it in.
not knowing, yeah, and like not knowing what happened with her and her mom kind of makes it hard to relate to her.
Hmm.
And then that would be fine, but like this show is trying really hard to convince me that Nagisa and Ayano are like dual leads in this series, and I'm very, very partial towards only one of them.
Yeah.
And I guess I can kind of see where she's coming from because like her mom raised her like very poorly. Uh and even like in this episode they mentioned like coaches like Kentaro are basically like attributing all of her success just to like talent. And so it's easy to see like how someone's relationship to a sport can get all fucked up because of that, but it's just a little too played up. Like that scene where she's sitting alone, like you mentioned, just like stoic faced, and then like gets the evil anime eyes, and you literally goes like, "What the fuck was that?" Like it was so. It's just weird. I don't know. In this like very grounded series, you have this character who's like a supervillain with a badminton racket, and it's just maybe I don't know what you guys think about it, Deanna. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
No, yeah, like I'm totally rooting for Nagisa, and
I think everyone is.
like it's just so hard to support Ayano because she's still a dick to her teammates. So
yeah.
it's so like unwarranted for her.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And I think I've just seen other shows do that better. Like
mhm.
there's one guy like falling into depravity when it comes to a sport, but like
Prince of Tennis. Speaking of, okay,
Prince
down
of
that bad.
I never watched Prince of Tennis,
Oh
but
yeah, I was thinking like
Ping Pong
like
the animation did it really well.
ping pong. Yep, that's definitely another
Like
show.
the
That's definitely.
hero and the monster or whatever they set up, and
Yeah.
like I don't know.
I mean, you brought up a good point that I forget what you would call her, the sponsor, the teacher, whatever it is, the person that
The
signs
coach?
up. Is she the coach?
Wait, who?
The
The
woman that is like the
instructor
teacher. Yeah, the instructor.
Oh, I don't. I guess she's just like the
and
teacher that
manager?
supervises the club or
Oh yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I
she's
think
the one
Elena's the
that.
manager.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's the manager, but I don't know what the roles are. Just the woman that approaches the coach and tells him that you shouldn't confuse it all the time. It's that Ayano also worked hard to get where she was. You're not immediately amazing at badminton the moment you pick up a racket, so it's important to like recognize that. And you could already tell that the coach has kind of failed in some respects because he's not recognizing that. He's kind of blinded because he himself is a very hard worker, and it's clear that he had some sort of a bias against people who have just natural born talent compared to him that worked hard to get where he was, and then, as you saw, had to. He was on the road to becoming on the Olympic team, and then he had to drop out. Even Nagisa was managed to work her way through it, so I think the coach is probably being a little jealous about that. I imagine that might play into some part of it, but I thought that was a good point that was brought up there. And yeah, Ayano, it's clear that her mom is kind of twisted once again, that she kind of just abandons her. But once, yeah, you talked about the match itself, and yeah, towards the end when they were showing that off, that Nagasa's got everything figured out, and it's going to be interesting to see if Yano can respond to that. It's clear that it's going to get a lot tighter towards the end because that's just how it works in these shows. But I thought that would be a good way to kind of throw Yano off her guard. So it's gonna be interesting. But if Yano loses, what the hell is gonna happen to her? That's my also concern. It's like, does she just snap completely? I don't know. But at this point, I assume something will happen during the break in between the matches. So we'll have to see. But let's talk about another show that has got a lot of drama in it, and that's High Score Girl. This was a rather sad episode, all things considered, about what actually went on. So, Hidaka and Ono, Hidaka approached Ono at the end of the last episode, and Meow is still kind of the hero of this story sometimes.
Very much so.
Yeah, he interrupted Ono and Hidaka because they were having an awkward conversation. They didn't know how to talk to each other, so Meow was like always looking out for her. I will also say Doi was also pretty good. He was trying so hard to get Ono to recognize him from, he's the guy that we talked about last week, is the one who, when they were kids, constantly tried to get Ono to be with him. So I think he's really shined a lot in these past couple episodes. So I've been happy about that. But yeah, it's the big thing about this episode is that it's something that we already kind of knew, but they really drive it home here. It's that Ono is basically living the life expected from her parents, and it gets even more hardcore as she goes through high school. She's clearly very maltreated, and yeah, I felt bad for her because at some point, her I forget it's her older sister, her aunt, I forget who she is, but she is she's her her teacher at home, and she instructs her and learning all these different noble things about being very studious, learning all the manners, and taking piano lessons and all this stuff. She essentially says that Ono now has a curfew at 4 p.m., so right after school. So she can only hang out with her friends at school. She can't go out and play at the arcade like she used to blow off some steam. And now it's that she's going to stay that way for the rest of her young life until she moves out and does whatever. But obviously, she won't be able to be with her friends anymore outside of school. So yeah, it was a pretty amazing moment because Ono reflected upon this because she clearly went to a different high school than Haru did, and since they did the entrance exams, they ended up on different schools. She cries at her bed because she just thinks about that, and that was really a very powerful moment because it all came back to her, and that's the kind of thing a lot of people can relate to. Moving away from friends, not being able to hang out with each other anymore, having fun, and everything being taken seriously. Could definitely relate to that. I also kind of liked how Haru mentioned that he got a Neo Geo CD from his rich friend, and he said he learned to extend his patience because the load times on the Neo Geo CD were awful, because this was like back in the days where CD-ROM drives were they read at a very, very low speed, like a 1x or 2x drive. So he's just sitting there for like minutes on end until the screen loads. That was kind of cool. That they kind of lean into that a little bit. That he used games in his real life, I suppose. But the way the episode ends is that Ono runs away from home because she can't take it anymore, and so she heads to Kawasaki to play a game as long as she possibly can with what little money she had, since she's no longer given an allowance. So yeah, I think that it's gonna be pretty sad that next week is the final episode. It's been a hell of a ride, and I've been having a great time with this. That this show completely subverted my expectations. Like, it really, you couldn't tell that it was all CG like. It really plays into the style of the show itself, and I had a great time with all these characters and all this nostalgia with it. So yeah, just gonna be really sad when it all comes to a close there. So what'd you think about this new show?
It was a great episode. I'm actually really stoked to start the manga once this ends. I don't know
Same.
if the anime is going to cover everything or if it's just going to cover like another arc or something, but I think even if it completely finishes, I'll probably start the manga from the beginning. But yeah, it was a really good episode as far as both like the drama and also the comedy behind it. Like, I
Yeah.
was still laughing even though this was one of the highest stakes episodes since like the series started. Like Doi winning all those medals, and
He's
then
got
like
like
while they're having
a thousand of them or something.
yeah, and
From
he's just kind of like sitting there with buckets of medals around him, and like while they're all arguing, you see him sneak away to like cash in his medals. Uh,
I oh yeah.
so yeah,
I also mentioned like the so Haru's got a part time job, and this his manager asks him, it's like, "Wow, you're working really
oh yeah,
hard. What are you saving up for?" And Haru's like, "The virtual boy," and she's like, "Bachan boy." And so,
and this scene just cuts away.
it just cuts away. And
Um,
even the old man that looks after Ono is like, "I want a virtual boy." I was like, "You guys, I owned a virtual boy. It's probably what I blame to having bad vision, because I play a lot of Mario Tennis. It's not something you want. It's not what you want."
yeah, the adult characters have always been like a fun ride in the series,
Oh
and
yeah.
like it's kind of interesting too because the butler that was usually like such an antagonistic character is now empathizing with Ono, and he's like pleading to the teacher like, please buy her a virtual boy, she needs this. And
Yeah,
it was
I
kind of
mean,
cool.
he did play a lot of pachinko, so I think it's that he
Yeah.
found his kicks outside of home as well. So yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of interesting seeing why Ono behaves the way she does. She's in a
yeah,
very toxic household, and we're even learning that she's like arranged to be married, or not
yeah,
arranged
predetermined.
yet, but she's going to be in an arranged marriage for the sake of like this company that her parents run.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really
but
all
yeah,
the way figured out. Yeah.
seriously. You covered all of it pretty much, but there's one thing I wanted to mention. I thought at the end, I could have sworn they were going to end up finding her at that arcade that they went to in the very beginning.
I
Remember
did
the one with
too.
like,
The one that
yeah, the
disappeared.
really cheap one? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I thought
I
that
thought
was
that would have
actually.
been really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it would have played into the fact that she didn't have a lot of money, so they went there. But
Yeah.
that arcade apparently disappeared, so that would also be kind of weird that it came back just for this. So they could
Yeah, it
probably
would have
still
been kind of
do
cool
it.
too if it came back like when they needed it most. I don't know. They could have played it off somehow, but I feel like that would have been a nice tie to like a very happy memory she had of like that quote unquote date with Haruo.
Well, they are not back yet. They could eventually still go there next episode, but
Maybe.
we'll have to see.
I hope so.
I guess they are wanting to advertise Kawasaki a little bit first, so I don't know. So, yeah, High School Girl, another one of the best shows of the season, easily. So, highly recommended for people to see that show. But we'll talk about the final episode next week. So, moving on, a show that only you've been watching, Nusha, Muyo, and Roji. What's going on with this episode here?
Yeah, so last week we ended they were cornered by this spirit called a rain dog, and then Roji, kind of unable to fulfill his post of like taking care of the smaller spirits, Muhyo's forced to put up like a barrier and use his first like spell in this encounter. And we know now that this is something he shouldn't be doing multiple times. He's supposed to be kind of conserving his power for the big baddie at the end. And so we see Roji try and take another crack at taking down this creature, and then he fails again. And then, because it seems like they're really trying to set up Roji's growth as like really slow. It's going to be like a slow burn and probably very gratifying when it happens. But this is like episode 8 out of 11 or 12. So I'm wondering if we're going to have that big cathartic developmental moment at the end, or if maybe I'm gonna have to pick up the manga to do it. But we see later that Roji, of course, is having like another crisis where he's doubting himself and his confidence, and he's working with this like prodigy Mukyo, and he's kind of just holding him back. And he speaks with Rio, which is the teacher, Biko's teacher, the magical tools expert, and she basically tells him that you're kind of reading too into it. You're not slowing Mukyo down. Mukyo's purposely kind of making your growth slow because he sees like your potential to be a great executor. Like he could have used weaker talismans to deal with that creature, but Mukyo said, "Don't. I'm going to take care of this," because we learn here that if you overly rely on weaker talismans, then you're no longer able to use stronger ones later. And so Mukyo, knowing that Roji has the potential to use these stronger ones, is willing to like take the bullets now so that his protege can become like the prodigy he knows he can become. And so that was kind of a sweet moment. It was kind of cool that Roji also got to learn that from another teacher, because we learned that Mukyo is not really good at conveying these messages himself. He's kind of, despite being this like prodigy and like admired by everyone, he's kind of socially awkward. And so as far as plot goes, they enter Sophie's cell, Sophie the Face Ripper, the one that they're here to execute, and then they notice that she's gone, and they deduce that she stole someone's face and has basically taken over their form and is living amongst the jailers. So now it's this mystery of who's really the spirit in disguise. And
Awesome.
and at the end, right at the end, we see Biko open a door, and we see the murdered body of a jailer who we're of course left to assume is who Sophie is like just pretending to be. And so right at the end we see that. We also learn that the person who destroyed Biko's talisman at the end that kind of kickstarted all of this was of course our main villain Enshu. But yeah, it's a good arc. I think I liked the one I mentioned earlier, the one about the authors when they went back to like the week by week spirit exorcism. I thought that was kind of nice, but this one's kind of a good mix of action, like world building and character development. And they actually really lean into like horror imagery pretty well too. Like this show, I think I mentioned earlier, they have like two modes. There's like the really peppy, bright color scheme, and then when they're dealing with spirits, there's like this really dark blue, purple color scheme, and like there's images like of these spirits missing their faces, of jailers with like their faces down, like blood pooled all over them. Like they're really not pulling any punches when it comes to this imagery. So I'm interested to see where this arc goes. I'm a little skeptical because there's only like 4 episodes left, and nothing has really happened that's made me like that's really blown me away. But I think regardless, I'll probably end up picking up the manga. But hopefully, we get a big climactic finish for the series.
Oh, wow. It's great because obviously you dropped a couple shows just to turn towards this one, and it turned out for the best. It sounds like so. That's good to know that it's winding up. So let's talk about another show though that's winding down completely. Obviously today, Planet With, they aired the last episode, but we're going to talk about last episode as we're in review here. But in any case, how was this episode for you? The last one.
This show has been consistently great, so no surprise. It was a great episode here. Like I mentioned before, we're in a 5-year time skip, and so everyone's kind of gearing up to face the big baddie of this series, which is the dragon. We also learned that the dragon isn't just a dragon, but it's a what they call people of paradise. There's this race. It was like the first sentient race in history, and long ago when that race was destined to be like evolve into a higher plane of existence, that dragon, who was basically just a regular person at the time, refused to do so for some reason. I don't know if they've explained it yet.
Hmm.
And basically, that dragon around him is his his mech. Like you know how I mentioned before, the psychic powers are what give them like these mechs.
Yeah.
The dragon is basically his mech, and like as the years have gone on, the mechs just continued growing and growing and getting stronger. And now that the pacifist faction is in charge, since they won the war last episode, they're not just trying to kill the dragon, they're actually trying to release him from his mech and actually like forgive him for the things he's done. And it's kind of interesting that that falls onto our main character because our main character's whole planet was eradicated by this dragon. And so naturally, he's the only one who can forgive him for this kind of stuff. And so it's kind of cool seeing how far he's come from just like being an Avenger to what he is now. Um, but yeah, we also get to see some really heartfelt moments with him and his family. Like he has this moment with Ginkgo on the roof. That's the thumbnail that I sent today. And basically he apologizes for what his race did to hers because I think I mentioned before his race almost took over hers before they were destroyed by the dragon. And so he asks her why she never sought revenge for what his race did. And then she said, because we always wanted to be part of Nebula, like this group of people that towed love and peace over war and conflict, that was never an option for us. And going aside from that, she even kind of calls him a younger brother of hers and says that she's enjoyed like watching him grow up the way he has. And I think that's really it just resonates well with the audience too, because we've really seen this character grow as the series has gone on. But yeah, this show does not pull its punches with comedy, even though we're in like the final arc. Like in the last episode, there was like this old man. He's like one of the paladins, one of the strongest ones, and the only reason our main character wins that fight is because this old man comes in with like this giant beam sword and like cuts off the arm of like one of the strongest mechs in the series.
Oh,
And then
God.
in this time skip, we're looking at his grave because he was old. It was like assumed he was going to die. They were like, man, he was such a great fighter. And then the other guy's like, yeah, I can't believe he died choking on mochi. Like they they killed this like badass character off in such a such an anticlimactic way off screen. And they,
Typical.
honestly, yeah, it got such a huge laugh out of me. And it just goes to show that this show's such a great like mix of quirky, epic, meaningful, and also just like funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great episode. I'm excited to see it end, and I take back everything I said about Soya being just like a one-noted Avenger. I think it is natural to feel that way when when we're covering shows like episode by episode. It's
Yeah.
kind of easy to see something as one part instead of like as a whole. So I think it's only natural that our opinions change like this. But he's really grown into a very interesting character, and I'm sad but also very excited to see how this show ends.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is something that I deal with a lot when I'm reviewing games. It's that you're so focused on analyzing something and critiquing it that you're sometimes not able to take a step back and realize the bigger picture about what happens over the course of an entire game to the characters themselves. So
Mhm.
it's something you got to balance for sure in order to do something like this normally. Considering a lot of it, all of us have not really done something like this before, where we have a show that's based on focusing on the smaller stuff when we're usually just enjoying the show for what it is. But it's great to see that Planet with everything I've heard. Like I said before a couple times, anyone I know who's watching this show has just been having a great time. And the reaction I heard from the last episode that aired today has been very strong. So you'll have to let us know how that goes next week when
Definitely,
we cover that. Yeah. Obviously, Hannie Bato also wrapped up today, so we'll find out what that's like next week. We'll talk about it next week. Let's talk about another show that's been kind of a roller coaster. I think I've used that phrase way too many times on this show, but we'll focus anyway. Tenru Series the Jaeger. How was this, Deanna?
We got a lot of context on the arc of Sirius. We learn why Yudi's dad left to become the seal for the arc, and then we also learn about Yevgraf's bondage to humanity 1,000 years ago. So it was a bit of an info dump, and I had to rewatch some scenes to fully understand. But I guess Sirius, like the race, they choose one person or something to be like the agent of God, and they're like this royal family, and they're not human.
Oh.
And so the professor and the other Jaegers, they discover the tomb of the royal family in Dogville, and then they're searching for the counterpart to the Ark, which is this like small orb with some sort of symbol inside. So it's kind of like a counterpart or a treasure that's not the real Ark, but I don't know. But then we go back to the fight with the mad scientist and his minions, but that fight was a bit underwhelming because they basically just fell off the cliff. And and then the scientist was like, "Is that how I'm gonna die?" Like it was just so anticlimactic. And then we get a moment with Yevgraf, the drama queen, doing his monologue about how he won't let vampire blood be seen as weak, especially like when they've been getting killed off from this unknown disease. And so he was just being like emo and stuff. And then Rudy reunites with his dad beneath the lake where his dad is sealed. And then he learns about the past and how his dad wanted to become the seal in place of people getting killed for the Ark. And then Yuri tells his dad that he wants to break tradition and carry on the new Sirius Pride, where no one needs to be sacrificed. And so his dad eventually gives him the Ark, and then white holy light pierces the sky, and that's how the episode ends.
As you do. It's a metaphor. Wow. Yeah.
How'd you feel, Nusha?
You pretty much said it all. It was a great episode. Yeah. Light pierces the sky, yada yada. Yuri met his dad, blah blah blah.
Well, good. Light pierces the sky and show's over.
Can't believe that was the last episode.
Is this actually, speaking of which, is this a show that'll continue on, or is this the last? The next episode's the last one, like the rest of these?
I'm not sure. They're ramping up for what seems like a final conflict. Like everyone knows where the Ark is. The vampires are heading there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's listed for 12 episodes, so we got 2 more left.
Oh, it did start late. I forgot about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, is this 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like a week behind.
That's
right. They missed a week or two. I remember.
Yeah.
So, and obviously we missed out on an episode, but I think we played catch up, so I don't think that's the problem. So we'll find out. Well, let's a couple more shows left to cover. We get the first one we've got though. The last one of the last ones is we rent Tsukumogami. How's this show, Deanna? How's this episode, I should say?
Okay, so we jump back to the Suo incense burner, and the narrator's even like, in case you forgot, this is the Suo that everyone's looking for, because you know,
that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Remember this plot point.
Do you have a short attention span?
So the Tsukimogami, they eavesdrop on a conversation between 2 people, and one of them they suspect to be Sataro, who is the owner of the incense burner. And then the Tsukimogami share this gossip back to the siblings, and then Oko asks Seiji to look into this person, and then Seiji joins with this guy named Gonpei, who's also looking for Sataro, And then there's like this whole backstory on the value of the incense burner and how it was like an item for like an engagement, and it was just like because like Satoru lost the incense burner, he like disappeared because he couldn't deal with the shame of like seeing that it had gone missing. And so that's why everyone's playing a game of Where is Satoru? And so the siblings find out that Gonpei is looking for Satoru because he is the clerk of Okana's shop, and Okana is the person who is originally engaged to Satoru. So there's like that whole engagement mess going on. And then but yeah, this this episode was a little hard to follow because of all the family and shop names thrown around. But for me, I just want to know what happened to Satoru and if he's alive or dead somewhere in a ditch. So
Possibly at this point. I mean,
that's all I want to know.
there's some tragic stories going on in this show, so that's potentially it right there. So, wow.
Mhm.
Well, then on that note, speaking of people winding up in a ditch, let's talk about the hyperviolent episode that was My Hero Academia. Holy shit. Some of that stuff there was pretty gruesome. I was not expecting some of that stuff. So, I don't have a lot of notes for this because it can kind of be summed up in a few moments here. So, first, we learn Twice has a rather tragic backstory. A lot of it has to do that, yes, he can clone himself, he can split himself apart into multiple clones, but then they all fought with each other. It's kind of like Naruto if Naruto's clones attacked him because they thought he was weaker than them, and so since they all had to fight, he thinks he may not be the original Twice. So that's kind of impressive. And it's gonna. I wonder how that'll play into his identity going forward here. But they also talk about, aside from like that, which actually took up like half the episode, is a pretty extended look at him, which is kind of surprising. But it also played into the fact that the villains are coming out of hiding, like the League of Villains, which just continues to be like a softball team name. In my opinion, it just sounds kind of weird. They have this big thing where like these people rob this store, if it's a store or a bank, but then they come back and found out that a lot of the members have been decapitated and dismembered and all kinds of shit. I think that might have actually been towards the end of the episode, but that was still one of the more shocking moments I've seen from this show. That's been mostly kind of like, there's violence and all, but it doesn't really get beyond like some high-powered punches like a Dragon Ball Z style. There was like a head that just happened to be there, so that was pretty crazy. But another thing is that they're talking about the hero work studies, which is an extension of what they kind of did with the sports festival, where everyone was kind of scouted from heroes to find out if they want to become their sidekicks and go through all these activities. There's this moment where it's like, why did we even participate in the sports festival? It's because you got like a leg up on the rest by having already connected with a lot of different heroes. So people who did not get chosen have to work harder to do these activities that are sort of at the discretion of the student themselves, so they get a lot more freedom to decide what they want to do, which is going to, of course, dictate what they become as a hero. So that'll play a big role in that. But also, we get introduced to the big three. Everyone I know that was watching the show responded very strongly to this. Apparently, this has been like a very highly anticipated episode, second to maybe Bakugo's mom, and so I think that this is something that they're excited about. I don't know the names of all the characters, but I do know Muriel. He looks kind of like a buff Tintin, which I thought was kind of funny, seeing his character look like that. But yeah, I thought that this was a pretty crazy episode. What'd you think about it, Nusha?
Yeah, you mentioned like things are getting darker, and that's very much what's happening here. Like the story is very much shifting after All Might's retirement and after like the lighter arcs of like the provisional license and everything like that. We're definitely going to see things moving towards a more dark tone, especially now that we're introduced to our new villain Overhaul, uh, whose voice I'm actually a big fan of. It's actually the same voice actor as Yevgraf in
Oh yeah.
Sirius. Yeah, it's a really like foreboding, like contemplating voice. It was really cool, and also being introduced to Big Boy, Best Boy, Vault Boy Mirio finally after
Shut
all
into
this
the
time.
wall. He's like, he did the whole Simpson thing where like
Such
he
a strong entrance
appeared
for a
and
character,
disappeared.
and just like I'm stoked to see him just kick ass in the next episode. So
He seems like a really good character.
he's great, yeah. But yeah, it was a strong episode. We're also seeing just the villains come out of hiding. They're still very much adopting Stains ideology. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to just deal with the riffraff anymore. They don't want to deal with just petty thieves who are out for their own gain. They're dealing with people who want to actually change society for the better, even though their viewpoint of how to do that is very twisted. So it's cool to see how Stain's influence is still, even this far in the show,
Yeah.
very, very strong. So yeah, very strong episode. I'm excited to see more. Deanna,
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought,
No, yeah, you guys covered it all. Muriel, best boy.
It was weird seeing Twice unmasked too. Like he looked like a typical guy just handing out, smoking a cigarette, and then clearly
Oh,
went
yeah.
through a lot. So
I was
that
like,
was new.
who are you?
Yeah, me too. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't recognize you at all. And then
a
he puts
very
on the
tragic
mask.
story.
Oh my gosh, like that's like I said, that'll probably play a big role. I have not read the manga, so I don't know how deep it goes there, but I thought that was a great part. I think it's important that they do this more, and that's one of the best parts of this show is that they're looking to give a lot more development to these other characters, not just the prime cast, and I think that's going to be key to making you care about what happens to everybody, whether for the better or for the worse. So, on that note, let's move into Anime Rewind, which is our watch-along series. We're watching Trigun. We're on to episodes 17 and 18, and whew, these two episodes in particular, I don't know. Episode 18, I guess it's kind of different, but episode 17 is what we kind of thought, because it's the episode itself was titled, it's about Rem, the person that Vash has these flashback sequences with, and we don't really know much about her, but in this episode we do find out. So it was pretty shocking on many levels what happened here. So they start off with a flashback of a space crew that are looking for a new planet, because as is typical in a lot of these different kinds of shows, Earth has drained their planet dry of resources, and everyone's at war with each other, and so they can't keep things under control. So they send people off to try to find a new place for them to inhabit. Among them is Rem, once again, who Vash has, feelings for. And so the ship itself, it's called Project Seeds because it's a ship made up of seeds of the human race. So it's built to carry their genes to an unknown world, their new Eden. And it turns out, yes, the Earth is in crisis mode, so they have to figure this out, or humanity will be wiped out completely. So yeah, for a while there, I was like, I wonder who these long-haired blonde people were, and then it turns out, yes, Vash and this other person named Knives, which is immediately flag right there. It's like, okay, his name is Knives. I think that's gonna be an indicator that anyone who has the name of Knives usually is just like a traitor or a villain. And sure enough, they're both sent to the ship. So it's going to be interesting to see if they delve deeper into where they first came from, because they're considered like angels or something like that. I will say immediately, Steve, what an asshole. He's the guy who gets drunk and is, sexually harassing the crew. And so it makes me think maybe steroids had gotten to his head. Why is he on this ship? He was immediately branded as a troublemaker. So I don't know, they were just asking for trouble. It also kind of made me confused why they even had alcohol on the ship, because it only just makes someone depressed or angry. It's not like something you should have readily available, but that's kind of just what I thought. So after going through this episode here, and actually I should show the thumbnail too that we have here, we find out, of course, Vash has these feelings for Rem, romantic feelings, because of how well she's treated them, and so that starts to develop. But then Knives, after being abused by Steve, and really Steve can be blamed for everything that happens in this episode, because he's the one that gives Knives this really bad picture of what humanity is like. Knives is just like, they're scum, they're germs, they're dirt, why do we even let them exist? And so Knives starts to take control of all the different crew members and turn them all against each other to stop the spread of germs, as he put it. So yeah, he clearly saw humans as incredibly inferior to whatever the race that he and Vash happen to be. And so yeah, as a result, all the crew members turn against each other, they kill each other, and Rem has to stay behind after the captain's killed to try to help humanity still continue to grow on this new planet, and she pays the ultimate sacrifice as a result. So that episode, in a nutshell, extremely powerful and really strikes the chord of what this show is really all about, I felt. And boy, these coming episodes are going to be really powerful. So let's first focus on each episode. So what did you think about this episode, Deanna, episode 17?
It reminded me a lot of Genesis, how,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking about Rem as Eve, and then I saw Vash and Knives as Abel and Cain, who are the sons of Adam and Eve.
That's
So
okay. That's a
it's
good comparison. Yes.
yeah, so it's about like how Cain, who is like Knives, it's like they got jealous of the other brother and then like, starts killing people. And so I thought that was I got that connection. And also like Rem's pacifist ideals. That's why Vash is so like adamant about not killing people, is because he got those ideals from her. Whereas like Knives, he believes in taking lives to survive for oneself. And the scene of them looking at the butterfly caught in the spider web, like I
Yeah.
thought that was like a very chilling scene, just because like of how quickly Knives just crushed the spider. And then like that's when you can tell like Knives and Vash are completely different from each other.
Oh, he cared about Bash cares about both. Like he wants both them to live, not one to
Hmm.
die. And while Knives is like, it's just the order of things. So
Yeah. And so like after learning about what happened in this episode, Rem's song just sounds much more haunting.
I shared that, yeah, and that
Yeah.
song. Like the soundtrack is incredible. It's crazy because the composer for the soundtrack, he doesn't have a lot of work, which is kind of sad because he is like his stuff is really highly underrated. And so people out there listening, just listen to the soundtrack. Listen to Ram's song in particular. It is really really good. So, what about you, Nusha?
Yeah, this was kind of like the flashback we've been waiting for a while. So we got to see why Vash thinks the way he does, and I guess we're introduced to a new antagonist. I was thinking this whole time Legato was going to be the big bad guy,
Yeah,
but it looks like Knives is also going to be a serious player to keep an eye on. And also, I'm wondering if Legato's got to be like the same race as Vash and Knives, right? I'm hoping we're
probably.
going to see. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm assuming with his powers and everything,
Yeah,
but because it's very clear that Knives is out to protect his race, and I think that's what that scene with the spider and the butterfly showed as well. It was like we can try and have both of these guys live, but if you spend too long deciding what's best, that spider's eventually gonna eat the butterfly. So it's just easier if we crush the spider. We already know that mankind already messed up their own living situation, and now we're going to a new planet because of them. And so why should we give them the idea or the opportunity to repent when our race is now in danger because of them? And so it's cool to see that different standpoint because Vash is all about saving everyone. Everyone should be able to repent. And Knives, on the other hand, is going out to kill them all because he believes his race should be the one to live because they didn't fuck up the way Earth did.
I
So
I was just thinking that this is definitely not going to be the case. I just thought it'd be kind of crazy if Legato is Rem's old boyfriend or something like that. Like I was
Oh
like,
my
how
god.
crazy that would be because there's
please
this
don't.
that's
Don't go
uh
there.
I know
What did
I
she
know
say his name was? It was like
I
she
forget.
said a name. I forget what it was.
I don't remember, but she just uh Vash started with really long blonde hair, as did Knives, and so she gave Vash a haircut and said that his hair now looks like what her old I forget it's a boyfriend or husband or something like that.
Yeah.
What she just kind of alludes to this man that she knew. Uh, his name was not Edgelord. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's looking at the chat.
I mean, with a name like Knives, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a character called Edgelord.
Yeah, honestly. But that leads us into episode 18, which I guess the way it starts is that Vash approaches Knives after finding him after 107 years. And I think that must have been showing what happened to cause the big calamity from many years ago that destroyed, like, made millions of refugees. His power was let loose. It kind of looked like he was having a dream because he was sleeping and he woke up and that was kind of like what he remembered. But I think that must have been the flashback to that particular sequence. That's what I'm guessing, because obviously we haven't seen Knives since then, and it was so quick when they showed him as an adult that I'm guessing that's what went down. But in any case, episode 18 was kind of confusing. It was very clear that they probably went into way more depth with this episode in the manga, because here Vash has gone into hiding after saying he was leaving everybody behind, like the two insurance girls who we don't really see at all in this episode, which is kind of different. But also, I mean, episode 17 as well. But like this is one of the first times we don't see appearance from either of them. So Vash takes on a new identity, Eric's, or as they say it, Eric's, like they say it twice every time. So I think that's his first and last name. But so yeah, he takes on a new identity, which is just him scruffy with some glasses on, and it's because this young girl named Lena finds Vash in an alleyway with his giant coat. After escaping from everything, and they nurse him back to full health. And so yeah, the whole angle between Eric's, Lena, and her grandma, I'm sure goes far deeper in the manga, but you can tell how big an impact he made on that entire family, because even without some of that context, it was still a pretty powerful episode, because you could tell how much Vash meant to the rest of the family, and it kept him out of trouble, kept them safe, and they kind of went through all these apparently it's been months that they've been living together, and so I thought that was still a pretty good episode. What you guys think?
Dana, you go first.
Oh,
I don't know what to think.
yeah. So yeah, Vash spending time with this like new family that he has, it kind of reminded me how like he's living in this dream, so he won't have to go back to his former self and face his past. But kind of just has to it kind of shows that, you have to wake up, like you have to face it. You can't run away. And I love that Wolfwood was the one who brought him back. I think Wolfwood is the brother that Vash deserves. So
It really humanized Vash in many ways, right?
yes. And then the haircuts, they're like scenes of like moments of transformation for Vash. So
Yeah, it really
yeah.
did. And I'm assuming from here on out, it's going to continue to be pretty dramatic. What do you think, Nusha?
It was nice seeing Vash vulnerable, like you guys said.
Yeah. And his
He's no
butt, you can see
longer.
his butt.
It was nice seeing Vash's scarred butt. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
The booty.
The booty, the Vash booty.
seen some hard times,
Yeah.
but
And he's a dog.
it was nice.
Yeah, that was weird.
But yeah, like this is the first time I think we've seen him not just traveling town to town. I think he had a very short-lived goal of stopping Legato, but after noticing just how dangerous that can be, he just destroyed another town because Legato controlled him.
Yeah.
He was understandably very downtrodden. He's like, I'm just gonna live out the rest of humanity's days with this family because there's really nothing I can do, and I'm not gonna go out there and destroy another town of people.
But he's
And
been
it
dragged
seems,
back. Sorry, he's been dragged back
yeah,
into this for oh man.
I mean, he had to be like, he can't just sit there and watch this happen. And like you guys said with Wolfwood, it seems like he knows what's going on with Legato. I don't think he'd be going out and collecting Vash and trying to motivate him again if he didn't know what's going on with Legato and what kind of danger mankind's in. And that would kind of stand in line with what we saw 2 episodes ago. Like we saw him shoot the samurai,
Yeah.
and it seemed like he had some kind of connection with this group. So I'm wondering if maybe he's connected to Legato in a way. Maybe Legato is going to be like Wolfwood's big baddie, and then Knives is going to be the guy that Vash is going to have to go out and stop. So I'm interested to see how these pairings, these ships, if you will, of good guys and bad guys are going to play
Man.
out.
What if Wolfwood is Rem's old boyfriend? I don't know. It's we have not just to be clear, people are listening, is that we have not watched this show before. We have not read the manga. This particular segment is just us watching a show that we've never seen before. So yeah, this has been pretty amazing how the show's grown so far. And episode 18, like I mentioned before, it really humanizes Vash and shows how caring a person he is. That he helped this family and protected this town from these bandits that were all over the place. But boy, yeah, it also showed how gruesome it could be, because you just saw like a bus get blown up full of people, and they showed their carcasses, and so it was pretty insane. And yeah, Legato, clearly he's already said before that the end of humanity is coming, and he's going to be the one to orchestrate it all. So yeah, Vash is very sorely needed in this case. So Wolfwood was just doing the right thing. But I don't know. I can only imagine that, if this turns into like Final Fantasy VII and he tries to drop a meteor on the planet, it's like he's got his giant gun thing that's going to blow it up. That's his that's his light stream. He's just going to shoot it and blow it up. I don't know. It's going to be curious to see how that'll happen. But in any case, yeah, we've got quite a bit of show left, and so I'm very excited about that. Another fourth of the show, really. And so, yeah, continues to be great. And so, yeah, on that note, next week, we'll be watching episode 19 and 20 of Trigun, along with recapping the other shows that we talked about this week. Potentially, we'll talk about what we want to see from next season, what our lineup is going to be, or we might save it for another week. I have to check out the schedule for that, but we'll talk about it in any case. So, we'll wind things down here. Once again, I'd like to thank Nushal and Deanna being a part of this podcast. And thank you all out there for listening and out there for watching, of course, who've been watching the VODs for this. Much appreciated. Please leave us feedback. We would love to find out how you guys are thinking about this episode, the format of these shows. If there's anything you'd like to see us change about it, we're always open-minded about that kind of stuff. And it's, once again, very much appreciated to get some comments regarding that. Or, if you like the show and want to just leave some positive feedback, that's also appreciated. It'll mean we're doing the right thing. So, but once again, thank you all out there, and catch us next week for yet another edition of Anime Review. Bye, everyone.
Later.
Bye.